All right, welcome back, guys. Let's look at my Twitter first. This is kind of how we usually do things. This is where I post a lot of the stuff. So just be aware if you're not following my Twitter, you can just put in bike for sale or at bike for sale on Twitter and make sure you hit follow. You just kind of hover over my name here. Well, actually, if you go to the profile, it doesn't show it on mine, but there's a follow button either way. So here's just a couple of quick things I've been talking about, and then we'll go over them in more detail. Well, number one, this is one guy that had posted an algo trade, and I wanted to retweet it, give him credit for that. His name's Crypto Bullet if you want to follow him. I talked about ETH versus Bitcoin to show that altcoins could take off here pretty soon. I mean, really what happens is when Bitcoin takes off, this is how it happens every time. When Bitcoin has a big pump like this, usually it has to come back down a little bit first and find a new level of support and then take off again before alts will take off. So we've got that. We've got some DXY stuff we're going to look at. We're going to look at ASTRA. There's a few other coins. Well, this is a BTS spot play. But anyway, I'm going to look at some longs and some shorts for you, mostly longs. And, you can decide whether you want to enter those or not. It's up to you. Not financial advice, all that good stuff. I'm just here to show you what I'm doing. So the first thing I want to talk about is the ETF thing. I don't know if all of you know this or not, and maybe you don't, but it's something you should look into more. Check price action on a lower time frame, and then check when the news actually came out on anything, and you'll see that news always happens after the price action. And that's exactly what happened here with that ETF. The ETF news that keeps on being put in front of your face. They want everybody to FOMO in, especially now. And, now that price is already pumped, you don't want to be jumping in now. You want to wait till it comes back down first if you're looking to get into Bitcoin. A lot of altcoins haven't gone yet, and we're going to look at that. I think there's plenty of room for those. But you're looking here at a guy that he spent 6 years managing ETF launches for the New York Stock Exchange. And he's just saying, that DTCC thing that you might have seen where they were saying, Bitcoin's now on this DTCC. Maybe it's going to get approved real soon because of this. And he says that means nothing at all. Don't worry about that. That doesn't mean that an ETF is going to get approved. I'll tell you when an ETF usually gets the most news and when it has the best chance of being approved, and that's going to be at your macro top. And I'll show you back here in, of course, this wasn't an ETF that happened, but right back here in November 2021, this is when Elon Musk appeared on Saturday Night Live. This is when Coinbase, well, they didn't really launch the IPO here for Coinbase. I think it might have been back here, but this was at another top. So just expect real euphoric. There's already going to be a lot of euphoric price action, but expect real euphoric news at the very top because they are going to need people to jump in that are brand new investors so that they can sell their positions. And they're selling all the way, as it goes up, but they want to get rid of their last positions at the very top. So they need a lot of liquidity for that to happen. And the only way you get more liquidity is to get more people to jump into the market. Because they're buying way down here. They're the insiders. They're buying at these bottoms where all these wicks are. This is institutions. This is insiders purchasing. This is institutions. This is insiders purchasing. At the very bottom, it's the retail that gets caught at the top. So, don't be that person. And we'll just jump right into Bitcoin. Of course, it had a massive move. I'll be honest, I was one of the people looking for this head and shoulders to come down. But, once it gets invalidated, which would have been at the start of this candle right here, because it broke all of this resistance up here, then, of course, there's no reason to talk about that anymore because, that's gone. And these patterns, for the most part, don't matter because they're not 100%. Really what you want to look for is support, resistance. Here's support, here's resistance. If it breaks below that support, it's going down. If it breaks above that resistance, it's going up. And of course, you need a full candle to close above that area first but there were many candles that closed above that on a 1 hour, 3 hour, or even lower time frame. So you would have known ahead of time if you would have stepped down to those time frames. But what I'm looking at currently is we have price going way up and we've got momentum coming down. Of course, if this rejects here at this yellow line, then price would come back down and test support somewhere down here. I don't know exactly where. From a macro standpoint, what we're looking at is you've got this, I think this is a 100-day moving average is what I've got here plotted. And then you got a 1221 that broke through it. And it was going sideways for a while, but this is a clear break now. And back here on April 2022, April 2022, this was an order block. Of course, you had all this support right here, right? You see all this support. Here was some institutional sell-off just before a big breakdown. So more and more people were selling off as this broke down. And it broke below the 100 MA as well. But you could have gotten out way up here, obviously, but this was like a major breakdown. And so there's an order block right here between, what is this, 37.5 and about 40.8. And I'll mark that here. This is the area where I think it's more likely to reject that. So I think it could still go up some more. And come into this level and then turn over. And that's just healthy. It comes up, it hits an area of resistance, and then it either comes all the way back down and tests the breakout, or, just like a 50% retracement, which would be, if it did make it up here, the 50% retracement would put it about, we'll just call it 31K, somewhere in there. So anywhere from 31 to 32 would, if it didn't come all the way back down here, 31 to 32 would be the area that it would, find support. And then it might just go sideways for a while. The new range for Bitcoin currently, I'll get rid of all this, is something like this. We broke above this resistance line. Now we're going to see something like this for a while, I would imagine, just kind of bouncing between these two levels. So that's the macro view there. For altcoins, one of the things you can always look at is ETH and see how it's performing against Bitcoin, which is what I'm looking at here on the weekly chart. There was a lot of support down here, a lot of liquidity, people buying right here. And it hasn't broken below this big wick right here. So it could still put in a higher low right here. I've got a couple different support levels. Here's support 1, here's support 2. It is below support 1 currently, but this could just end up turning into a wick at some point, because this is the weekly candle, and we've got, a little bit less than 4.5 days left. And it was putting in a, really, you could even shift this like this. Maybe it's going to do something like this instead. But it's kind of a wedge going down here. And this could be your center line. So it's clearly broken below. And it may come down, find support right here, create a lower low. Well, let's just see what the RSI looks like to go along with that. So we're way oversold, just like we were here, and then it had a V-shaped recovery. Not saying it's going to this time. It could take it a while. But my expectation was either we hold this support line here at S1, and we still could, and then we break out and come back up to this resistance 1, or we come down to support 2 and then come back and, around the halving start breaking back up. So it really just depends on how long this takes as far as how alts would perform here. But if things play out like they've always played out, then at some point the halving is going to cause things, and it's not really the halving, but around the halving is usually when things start going up, or a little bit before it. But currently, clearly bearish on ETH versus Bitcoin. I'd really like to see this get back above here if altcoins are going to get bullish anytime soon. But we looked on the Bitcoin chart, right? We haven't really hit resistance just yet. Let me just look left here. And there's a couple of areas here where, some wicks were coming down, but it's not the true resistance just yet. Yeah, I mean, the true resistance is up here. See where back in 2020 we came up and rejected here? And then also that's where it broke down back in 2022. So you got above it, and then you broke below it, and you never got back above it at that point. And so that's going to be your new resistance in this case, in my opinion. And it may not go straight up there, this week. It may go sideways a bit and then go up. It probably needs a rest. I don't know what this looks like on RSI. Let's see. Yeah, it's looking pretty bullish here on the weekly. I mean, it's above that 70 line, so that's real bullish. Yeah, the daily's looking pretty overheated, actually. So, we'll know a lot more by the end of the week, but, currently, things still look bullish, obviously. Definitely no reason to be shorting Bitcoin at this point. But of course, a lot of us, this is what we really care about, is the altcoins. So ETH's going to lead the altcoins. I mean, there are some that are taking off, and I'm going to show you some of those. So we can still, make good money playing alts. It's just the majority of the alts aren't going to take off until, ETH makes its move. All right, let's look at ASTRA first. That's the one we've been talking about the most. There was a nice inverted head and shoulders that was showing up here up until this point, and then it held that. We're getting some chop here, and I didn't really like it yesterday or whatever that was a couple of days ago. I don't remember what I was saying. Let me just check here. Yeah, I had posted that it came down and it retraced this order block, which the order block, just so you know, just to explain a little bit more, what the order block is that small candle, and sometimes it's big. Usually it's a smaller one, but it's the candle just before a big move like this. So this is, if you were to look at this right here, this is an unusual move, same as this one back here. And usually they happen right around resistance, and that's what happened here on both these cases. This was a resistance area. First, there was this minor resistance here, and then a more major one here, and it broke through both of them. So what you're looking at for on something like this is usually it's going to come back down and test that area just before the breakout, just before the big candle. And sometimes it takes a long time, sometimes it doesn't. And in this case, it took, I don't know, a couple of weeks, but it did come back down and retested it. Sometimes it just comes down and retests at 50%, which it did that immediately. So that's one clue to watch for, is when you get a big breakout after a long period of resistance, sometimes you can be patient and it comes back down and retests that big candle. That's where people get the fib retracement from. The golden pocket comes into play here, the 618. Here's the 0.5. So it went past the 0.5 and went all the way into the golden pocket, even hit the 786 here. So that's kind of how people use the fib lines to find where those retracement points are, so they can buy in, or where they can know where to take profit on either a long or a short. And if you take this whole move with a fib retracement, you can see that golden pocket got hit exactly. And I don't show fibs as much, but you can see how it works the same as order blocks in a lot of cases. So usually at least you're going to go 50%, which is the 0.5. And fairly often you're going to hit this this golden pocket as well. You'll hear it talked about a lot. And that's, that's kind of what I'm looking at right now is I'm not real sure. This one's already come down and retraced a golden pocket here. And I expected it just continues from there, like a V-shaped recovery, but it's stalling out here. And I'm not real sure what's going to happen with it just yet. But I am back in the trade for now. I went ahead and got back in this morning. And what I'll look for here to know whether or not, to know whether or not I want to keep the trade open is if I get a candle close below this major support line, this new support line of 38.34. And it's not exact, it's, kind of around that area. But if I get a full candle close below here, I'm probably going to get out, especially if it closes below this area, which is, basically 3600. Because this is currently the higher low as far as market structure goes for this structure. Currently you've got from a macro standpoint, really you wanted to get above this one. You can see when you came down here and had this automatic rally, this was your new resistance because this was the order block of that move down. Actually, this was probably the order block right here. So really this thing would get very bullish on a macro standpoint if it got above this area at 78.35. But I was trying to catch it early, and I saw on RSI that it was starting to turn around down here. And currently we're above 50, so that's also bullish on a macro standpoint. But if you're talking about pure market structure, you've just barely made a higher high here. Here's your previous high, which was a lower high at the time. So from here, it's made a higher high. So we have to absolutely get back above this one. And that's another point you can watch. If it has trouble getting above 5,900 and keeps rejecting, then that's a bad sign. And really my major resistance area currently is about 5,300, this purple line. You can see a lot of these wicks are showing up here. They're showing up down here. And that's just telling you things are going sideways currently. But if we get a candle close above right here, I would feel a whole lot better about it. This is just kind of a sideways, just kind of no man's land is what I call it. So from a shorter time perspective, I want to see it stay above 4,300. And I really want to see a move back above this right here, above 5,300. And then after that, you need to keep creating your higher highs, higher lows. And once you get above, 68.30 or so, you're looking real good. But you definitely want to see RSI stay above 50 here. And I wanted to pull up ASTRA versus BTC on TradingView, but it didn't have the option there. So I pulled it up here on cointrader.pro. It kind of looks the same, but there's a few small differences. So here's some of the areas that we were talking about before. I'll just mark a few of them real quick. Well, here's your major support currently. Somewhere in here. It's more of a zone than an exact line, but it, it kind of pushes up into here a little bit as well. Could probably do something like that and just split the difference. Yeah, I like that right there. And I wouldn't worry about the values over here because this is, this is ASTRA against a Bitcoin pair. This isn't, let me zoom it in here. This isn't actually, ASTRA versus USD. So it's okay if it wants to come down here and, touch this one more time, but it's got to stay above here. If you get a candle close below, that's probably a bad sign. Just want to see if there's anything else. Yeah, so this move down order block was about right there. So let me just get rid of this one. I want to see a move above here on this Astra Bitcoin chart. If you can get a candle back above there, I think it'll be good. But if we remove these and just look at the range, here's really your range where it's bouncing in between. Well, really, it was that one that I had there, yeah. And this is kind of a deviation here, but for the most part, you're just kind of bouncing in between here. And this was good that it recovered this right here. So you got a good support right in there. Let me see if I can switch over to the other chart and see about what that is. I think that would be here, wouldn't it? Yeah. So it'd be somewhere in here. And that's about where it retraced the order block and bounced. So this was a really good bounce. And it turns out that's that order block from the move up. So there is a chance, just so everybody's aware, that this could still come down and fully test this order block one more time. Because it trying to think here. I mean, it actually hasn't tested it at all now that I look at it. But then again, these haven't been tested back here either. And this one up here hasn't been. And that's why I'm kind of talking about it being no man's land, is because it could still come down here and test that. It could come up here and test this one. So we're just kind of right in the middle currently. So it's really up to you. I mean, like I said, I'm in it currently, but I'm being careful with it, and I'm checking it every day, or maybe every couple of hours even, to see if there's any big moves. Okay, let's move on to, this is another one that started getting bullish actually back in September, but it seems to be getting more bullish lately because it broke through this resistance. So from a daily perspective, if you're just taking in the macro environment, clearly it's bullish. You're above the 50, it's breaking into the 70. I'm just going to look at the weekly first. I haven't drawn any support lines or anything here. I would say the resistance areas are something like this. If you want to look at those numbers, if you do enter this one, that's kind of where I believe, yeah, that's where I would consider taking profit if you do get into it. I need to really study this one more closely though. And you're going to see a lot of people talk about, it may start coming up again if, for the people that are really bearish, people talking about it going back down to pre-pandemic lows or highs, sorry. And that's where that order block is right there before this big move. There's a candle right before that. And that's pretty close to these pre-pandemic highs before it dipped in March 2020. Some people think these alts could still come down to these levels, and some could. I'm not discounting that, but I don't know if it would happen just yet. Let's see. There's kind of a support line somewhere in there. So you are above your support line currently. And on the monthly, it seems like the RSI wants to pop above that line there, but it's still showing bearish in this case. But on the weekly, you just crossed over 50. So I would say this one looks fine. This is CVC or Civic. From a lower time frame perspective, there's another resistance here somewhere in there. So it's kind of sitting right at that resistance. And if it gets above this one, that's when it hits that 15 mark. There's a lot of room for it to run if it does get moving even higher than this. If you go down to, say, a 3-hour, let's see, kind of getting some lower highs on RSI and on momentum. Yeah, you got a dip right there on the hourly, but it's holding the 50 line still. I'm just trying to see if it's a good entry right now. It's really hard to tell. I mean, it's super bullish currently. Another little support area there. It might come back down to, I mean, if you look at if you just look at fibs here, it's already touched the 5. It hasn't touched, since this full move, it hasn't come back and touched the golden pocket. I mean, one thing you could do is watch volume on a lower time frame. And if you get something like this, like a big green candle, or maybe even these, or maybe this size, as this breaks out, then that might be a good buy, or just wait for it to come back down and retest either way. Like say if it was to take off and did something like that, there's a chance it could come back down to the 0.5 or to the golden pocket and then take off again. That's another way to play it. So yeah, one to watch anyway. Civic, Doge we've been talking about lately. Just to keep the theme going on the fibs, it did come back down and test the 0.5. So this one could be ready to move, but I just want everybody to understand that's watching. Sometimes you can get it, it'll break out and then it'll come back down and ride this line. So, just because it's broken out doesn't mean it's just automatically going to take off. It really depends on how much resistance it's going to find. To me, it doesn't look like it's going to hit any resistance on the lower time frames till about 0.075. Yeah, it's about 0.075 or so. RSI looks good on the daily. Lower momentum on the, what am I looking at? The hourly. I like the hourly, by the way. That's one of my favorite time frames, but you have to look at multiples. Yeah, I think it's just sideways for a little bit for this one. It may not last long though. Yeah, it's still bullish. You might see your RSI come down, touch this midline point, and take off again. I think that's right. Yeah, or on the 3-hour, you could see the same thing. I would just watch what happens at the 50 RSI on the hourly and the 3-hour. That'll give you a better idea of what to do on the daily. But you want to wait for a better option, a better time to purchase, because you're seeing a lot of these. Same thing that we saw on what were we just looking at, ASTRA. Remember, we had wicks to the upside and wicks to the downside. So that just tells you there's indecision in the market. Bulls and bears are fighting each other. And volume's probably low. Well, no, it's looking okay. Yeah, my guess is it would maybe come down just a little bit more, but I mean, it's done its full retracement to the line that I drew there. So technically, it's met all the requirements to keep moving. Just look at the weekly. Yeah, weekly looks like it's just about to break the 50, maybe. So it could just be a few more days and it pushes through this level that it's at. But you always have to be careful of these. I mean, this is the first time that it's pushed out of this trend line. If the trend line's right. I guess I could, hang on. Let me put it on this one. Yeah, so see how you got a little rejection right here, and now it's broken out. So that's a good sign. It's not really any bullish divergences here necessarily. So it could come down a little bit and then finally break out of the 50, or it could just do it. This is on a weekly chart though, so just be aware that these candles only happen once a week. But I do have a buy signal here on, this is called Engineering Robo, by the way, if any of you are interested in that one. But you don't have to have this. I mean, RSI is enough. You can use Vu Manchu. Is a free indicator that's similar to Market Cipher, which is what this one is. Usually what I like to see on Market Cipher is for it to to have that initial breakout and then come down one time and then put it in a green dot here near this center line and make sure that money flow is starting to turn green, and then I get a lot more bullish on it. Okay, let's see what DGB is doing. This is another one we talked about. So here on an hourly chart, here's what I'm talking about. I was just talking about this, how what I like to see is, it puts in a red dot, then it comes down, puts in a green dot, and usually that's a good buy. You're getting a red dot here on the hourly, and we'll step back here. So you got a red dot there, and moving forward, I'm just waiting on a green dot to show up kind of near the 0 line there, and there it is right there. So your money flow is green, you got a green dot, and probably what's going to happen here is your RSI is going to stay above the 50, and it's going to break above that yellow line. And it happened briefly, but it took it a second, and then it finally broke out of it. So this one's currently sitting on support. Might not be the best time to buy it right now, but it's bullish. And the reason why I say it's maybe not the best time to buy it is you've got this red dot here. It may roll over just a little bit, and then another green dot here somewhere. I'm just trying to see what the change in price was on that, because it doesn't seem like it's coming down much. Yeah, it's only coming down like 3% or something, and then it's moving right back up. Yeah, this still looks good. Let's see what the daily is showing. Yeah, daily is just now getting green. RSI is above 50, looks fine. And it looks like it's above this resistance here. So what you're looking at on targets going back up. And one way you can find targets is on a short time frame, is you can just start up here on this previous move up and then go down to your bottom. And these would be your targets coming up. You can pause this if you want to look at what they are. You can even use these up here. But aside from that, you just want to go back and look at where your order blocks were. And I'll turn off this so it's easier to see. So here was an order block because it's the candle right before the down. Basically this is a lot of support, and it broke through the support. So here's your order block, the small candle just before the dip. Just like this over here was your order block, because it was the candle before the pump. And it turned out this was the same one. You can go to higher time frames and find these better sometimes. And you can move this one up to there. It's this red candle before the big move. And yeah, that one's good there. Kind of right there. And turns out that was about your range as well. So let me just mark these real quick. You could mark this one. I'd rather go down to daily to mark it. I mean, these are just areas that could be resistance. It doesn't mean it's going to hold it for very long. Curious where the fibs are going to work out on this, if there's any confluence. There's a lot of confluence there on the golden pocket on the line that I just did. Here's one pretty close, and here's one pretty close. So those are fairly close to where they should be. Sometimes you could move them up just a tad where the start of that candle was, or this one. And then if you redo the fibs after doing that, let's just see what it looks like. Yeah, see, it's right on those lines now. So all I did there was I adjusted where I had my line to the start of this candle, or the resistance of this candle before the breakdown. Same here, this candle before the breakdown. And this was the top of the wick of this candle before that breakdown. So I feel like these are these are really good resistance levels to take profit at as it goes back up. But just be careful. always start with a daily or a weekly and look at your indicators. Or another one I can bring up here is the, I've talked about EMAs before. So here's 1221 EMA. And I've got a cross up. It is bullish, which you don't even need these in this case. You could just use this only. Look how it rejected the 1221 all the way down. And then it broke above it and it retested the 1221 perfectly. So you could have taken that trade. And if your candle closed below, the full candle closed below these two lines, or if the two lines crossed down, 12 crossed below the 21, then you could have gotten out. So what you'd want to do is go down to like a 3 hour and you're still bullish. Here's your 1 hour, still bullish. You don't have a full candle close below, and you don't have the yellow line, the 12, crossing below the 21. I wouldn't go any lower than an hour. So yeah, right now might not be a bad time to buy it. Just be aware it could come down some more. Okay, let me see. This is a weird one. I've never heard of this coin. It's called BTC2. Maybe it's not on every exchange. This one happens to be on MEXC. The reason I was looking at this one is just it might be a good short. And these next two that I'm going to show are possible shorts. So if you're not interested in shorting or leverage trading, then these may not be for you. But that's what I'm going to wrap it up with on this video. So daily, it's extremely overbought is what I was looking at. Actually, it's already come down since I started the video. I was going to do a short on this one, but I forgot to look at it again. But you're just looking at the opposite on this. I mean, the money flow is thick on this side. On the 3 hour, I wouldn't mess with it. But it did cross back below the 70 line on RSI, which is usually a bearish signal. I still don't like the money flow is green. I would rather see money flow starting to taper off into red at least. Let's see if we can see that. It still hasn't really done it, but it's possibly starting to taper. We can't tell yet. This is the first test of the 50 since it broke out back here. So it's probably not going to fail much lower than this. It's probably going to come back up. So what you'd want to see as far as an RSI standpoint, come up here, fail below the 50, retest. And then if this retest fails right here, that would be a good short on a 15-minute chart. But again, this is pretty risky, so just be careful. Another thing you could do is just use your, I don't have my EMAs on here actually. Let me just use my quick one, which is called, where's that at? Oh, here it is, Easy Scout, Mr. Hokage. And it's got a little yellow, it went green to yellow here, warning you that, this one could be rolling over. So if it came up here and it rejected there at this yellow line, then there's a chance it could come down to this green line here, which, wouldn't be a bad leverage short on a 15-minute chart. But again, it's risky. It's a good way to lose money. So be careful with leverage. I'd put a real tight stop loss in this situation if I took that trade. But on either Fu Manchu or Market Cipher, what you could look for is this. Money flow continuing to taper down. And then somewhere in here, about 3/4 of the way through the taper, if you saw something like this, where it put in another lower red dot, that would be a good point to short it. Okay, switching to TOMO. TOMO got, it got bullish again recently. We shorted this one at one time is the reason I'm bringing it back up. And it was interesting because it did a real good job of finding support on this trend line. I didn't notice it at the time or I would have called it out. Well, this one's already, I was going to short this one too, but it's already come down a lot. The only reason I'm really looking at a few shorts is when Bitcoin has a big move like this, sometimes it will come back down just a bit, or it just goes sideways. Yeah, it rejected here and came down just a little bit, but it's clearly bullish. So yeah, Tomo, I don't know that I'd really be interested as much in a short now because it seems to be finding support here maybe. I guess if it got back below this purple line, I might be more interested in a short again, or especially, this blue line right here. That would be very bearish. Let me just see if I can see anything else. Or if I got a break below the 70 line on the RSI, I'd be interested again, but money flow is still real thick. This looks better on the hourly. Yeah, if the 50 RSI broke below here, I'd be more interested in it, especially if it broke down and then retested and, clear retest. Yeah. Money flow just turned red on the 15 minutes. So this could be an okay short, but it may only come down to here. It's still a 5%. If you're doing like a 20x, which is very risky, be careful with that. Or a 5 or a 10x, you're still making a pretty good profit there. But one thing I want to mention on leverage is, number one, only do it if you're an experienced trader and can do TA. But number two, keep your stop loss tight and only risk what you're willing to lose, because you will lose a lot when you're leveraging. There is a support line here, so this one's kind of sketchy. I don't know if it's going to break through it or not. Okay, well, that's all I have for you this time. Again, hit the like, share it with your friends. If there is, if there's any coins or anything that you have a question on, feel free to post that, and I'll do a special video on it, as long as I don't have a ton of them. But yeah, I mean, like this person here, he had asked me on a video to look at ASTRA, and I've been following it for him. So just know that if the coin looks like it's volatile and has some movement on it, usually I'll follow it and I'll post some charts on it and stuff. So just put it in the comments there, or you can post on my Twitter here, and I'll see your message that way too. Okay, y'all have a good day. Thanks.